Ready? Uh, Hi everyone, welcome to the stream. I'm Cal McDonald. I make comics you can read at calmcdonald.com. What are you up to today, Alina? Yeah. I'm only happy when it rains. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Um, I got a new robot. Um, yes. My Roomba broke, so now I have a new one. So I have a new robot in my life. Do you name your electronics? Okay. I don't have plants, so I just name my robots. Um, uh, I name them after characters in my comic. So my Roomba's name is Jeff. Yeah, my phone's name is Jordan, who is Connor's husband. Yeah, yes. Um, yeah, so my phone's name is Jordan, my Roomba's name is Jeff, my external hard drive is named Connor, and my computer is named Danny. Cause yeah, uh, I made him Irish, because I like the way he says boulevard. Yeah, um, yeah, um, sleeping. I gotta wake up early because I'm gonna go to a Pilates class. Uh, that is a great way to spend your time. Well, I hope more people show up to the counter protest than the protest. Uh, good, good. Um, um, I'm still enjoying showing Iris and Nero and Hi Buffy for the first time. Their comments. Angel just went evil. And what's very funny is it gets to the part where Xander explains that he remembers being a soldier. So he knows US military things. Um, and you can see it in the chat if you scroll up, but Iris's response to that is, wait. The Halloween episode was plot relevant." Um, yes, it was. Uh, Not all of them. We skipped Ted. Um, yeah, Ted is one where, when I explained what the episode was about, um, they were like, "Oh, that sounds fun," and I was like, "It's really not because it's mostly Buffy's mom's boyfriend being a abusive shithead and nice to everyone else, so no one believes Buffy about abusive boyfriend." Um, Yeah, so that's not a great thing to watch. Um, so yeah, whereas the filler episode we did watch, Bad Eggs, um, that's at least a fun time because everyone makes cute beds for their eggs. And then they get mind controlled by a demon. And then there's inexplicable cowboy vampires. Um and I appreciate that the the cowboy vampires, it acknowledges that um racist cowboys can do horrible things without being a soulless vampire. Because it says that they slaughtered an entire Mexican village. Um, and Buffy's like, "Oh, those demons," and Giles is like, "That was before they were vampires. That was just racism." Um, and yeah, so now we got Evil Angel, to which none of them knew about, but they know Angel has his own show later, so they're like, "Wait, he's funnier when he's evil." Um, yeah. It really let David Boreanaz show off that he can be funny. And that's a thing that he goes on to use in Bones. Even though that is not a good show. Yep. His new thing is he's a Marine. Um, I haven't seen it, but so maybe he's back to brooding, but going back go, go, going back to his roots of being a broody man. Uh, unless you're a Lost Boys vampire, they seem to run on fun. Yeah, they run on fun. Hmm. I think with what we do in Shadows, it depends. Because because in the movie, Jermaine Clement's character, he has his brooding while he tortures people. That's how he deals with being upset. Um, I love the reveal in the movie that the Beast is his ex-girlfriend. I backed it on Kickstarter. Uh, that's where I got my first Werewolves Not Swearwolves shirt. And I say first because I have three of them. The original's not very good. I don't wear the original because it is not a very good shirt. Is it the Steam Crow one, or is it the Unicorn Empire one, or is there a different uh, okay, because if there's a different one, then I maybe need 4. werewolves, not werewolves shirts. Does it have a hand on it and it says count to 10 human again? Alright, then that is a different shirt. The Unicorn Empire one has a hand on it that, has the pentagram and the, count to 10 human again. Uh, mhm. The Unicorn Empire people just released a Barbie shirt that says, "Do you ever think about dying?" Yeah, we were I was staring at them all weekend. So I just sent you the Unicorn Empire one. You need to send me your shirt so I can complete all I can have all the werewolves, not werewolf shirts. Uh, yes. I'm very bummed because my favorite shirt from Unicorn Empire is a Teen Wolf shirt that they don't make anymore. My shoulders are too big for it, so I had to cut the sleeves off. Um but yeah, they don't make it anymore and then they don't have the stencil, so they won't like make a custom one for me. Um and it is a Teen Wolf mashed up with Zoolander. Um, not a pair you would expect, but, it's the Derek Styles school for teens that can't werewolf good and wanna do other werewolf things good. Yeah, yeah. And then I saw a very good meme recently that is Vegeta headed to Waffle House, and he is saying, "I hear that this is where the greatest fighters are." Yeah. Um, I've been watching Atlanta, on Hulu. That's what I've been watching while on the treadmill. And there's an episode that made me be like, "Jesus, I don't know if I can finish exercising now having just seen that." Like, that's intense. Part of why I had it on the treadmill is because it is hard to binge, but I'm like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't watch this on the treadmill either." Because what it is, one of the main character's friends, um, goes to a rich guy's house, um because there was an ad for like a free piano, just you just need to come pick it up. um so he goes and the guy who owns the house is Donald Glover in a mask to make him look like an old Michael Jackson. And um so it's and then like instead of giving him the piano or like giving him instructions, he's like, "Oh, come sit in the parlor." And then he's like, "Would you like some water?" And he says, "Get Darius some water into an intercom." And then they talk for a bit and it's like, "Is your butler coming with the water soon, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have a butler." He's like, "What goes with the intercom thing?" He goes, "Oh, that's just to remind myself to do things." Uh, yeah, and it's then, he starts to tell him that the piano belonged to his brother, who was a famous musician, um, who doesn't talk to anyone anymore, and, Darius is like, I think, um, the brothers made up, and he was the famous musician, and he just, like, made himself look white so that way people wouldn't recognize him. Um, and then he's like suddenly hears someone playing the piano on the second floor, and it's the Michael Jackson looking guy, and the guy who's there for the piano really wants this piano because it is a cool piano, but it's very much like, am I gonna die in this house? Like, is it worth the free piano? And then and while he's thinking that the famous brother is made up, and that he like assumed made up a new name and identity so people wouldn't associate him with his famous past, he then finds a man in a mask in a wheelchair trapped in the basement who like writes on a chalkboard that his brother is killing them both. Um, and the guy's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" And he goes, "There's a gun in the attic." And then like he is like, "Okay," and he finally gets instructions on how to get the piano out. And but the rich guy has parked his car behind the U-Haul the character got. So he can't leave. So he then goes to be like, "Hey, your car has trapped my car." And then the Michael Jackson looking guy pulls a gun on him and like tells him to put down his phone and is like, "You'll be my sacrifice so I can make great art." Cuz great art it like requires sacrifice. That's what our dad taught us. Um to, justify the abuse the dad was putting on them. Um, and then, like, he's about to kill this guy, and then the dude in the wheelchair shows up and shoots his brother, and then gets the main character to give him, like, the fire poker. It's a really, really long rifle, so, like, he gets the poker from the this guy and then uses it to pull the trigger on the extremely long rifle because he could not do that before because the gun was too long. And that's how the episode ends. The guy is just left. All he wanted was a free piano. And he ended up witnessing a murder suicide of two very fucked up brothers. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if I can work out now. Yeah, that was intense. So Atlanta's a good show. It's just extremely intense sometimes. Yeah, intense. Yes, that's accurate. And the episode right before that is about um Donald Glover's character's cousin trying to get a haircut. and it's like wacky hijinks the whole time. Because he goes to get his haircut and then his barber's late and his barber is talking on the phone with like a Bluetooth headset, and then instead of cutting his hair, he is like, "Oh, I got to show you this YouTube video." And then in the middle of the YouTube video, the barber's girlfriend calls cuz he apparently has uh promised to cut his kid's hair. And he talks the guy into coming with him um to his girlfriend's house, and when she's yelling at him for being an hour late, he's like, I had to pick up this homeless magician that needed help on the side of the road, pointing to, because it was like, why is he wearing a cape?
Right.
um it's like he's a magician and he was just stranded on the side of the road, and I helped him, and I only helped him because of all that good Christian values you've been teaching me. Like, it's
Right.
completely ridiculous. Like, it is just like ongoing. Um, and then the power goes out at the girlfriend's place because the barber guy didn't pay his girlfriend the electric bill. So he can't cut the guy's hair there. So then like he takes him to a construction site and won't do it until he gets help. Basically stealing lumber, and yeah, it's just like ridiculousness after ridiculousness with that. So it's like that is what followed up. Like that was what happened right before the murder suicide episode.
Right.
So
Thematically, all over the damn place.
yeah.
Okay.
Um
Uh, what have I
and
watched recently? Oh, did you watch Highlander back in the day?
I have seen the first Highlander movie, and
That
that
is
is
the
it.
only one that exists. There is no other Highlander movie. There's just one. They made one. It was perfect. They decided not to make any more.
Did you know that Lucy Bellwood's dad wrote the Highlander?
No,
He did.
like Lucy Boatspellwood.
Yes.
Wow,
She
that's
made a
cool.
comic about it, about how Hollywood will steal your baby.
Yeah, I mean they will. And your career, and
Um
your voice, and your
yeah,
personality.
yeah, it's kind of a comic explaining why she doesn't really have an interest in pursuing any of that, and
Yeah,
it's because she heard about how working on the Highlander went
yeah,
for her
that's
dad.
fair. I mean, it's a great story. It's a really, really cool world building. Cause they announced that they're going to do a Highlander TV series. We'll
Mhm.
see how that goes. Certainly, there's a lot of time they can fill in. But I was
Was
missing.
wasn't there didn't there used to be a Highlander TV series?
I think so.
Okay, so this would be the
Yeah,
second Highlander TV
yeah. But
series.
this one will also be like with modern cinematography, and I'm on the fence about that because one of the things that when we were watching it is I was like, there is a bunch of really cool lighting in these shots that doesn't get done in modern cinema because they tend to
Mhm.
over process the lighting. So the lighting will get really. You can do interesting things with lighting, but they're not painting with shadows as much as they used to in some
Yeah.
shots. And I really miss that like high contrast shot of like they do the like old cinema trick of lighting people's eyes when they're like moodily driving around in cars.
Mhm.
So just
Yeah.
the like strip of light across their eyes is so comic book, and I love it dearly. And they don't do it in modern cinema. Everything's
That's every shot of Morticia Addams in the Addams Family
yes,
90s movies.
because that was every woman of mystery in old cinema, in
Yeah.
old black and white
Yeah.
cinema, and I love it.
Um, Also, on TV shows that are getting made, have you ever read the Percy Jackson books?
I have not.
Um, have you followed so they're making a Percy Jackson TV show,
Right.
and folks are mad because black people are in it.
Of course they are. Mad, I mean, not that black
Uh,
people are. I'm glad that black people have been cast in this, because Jesus Christ, y'all.
and the, author's response is, well, like, there's the kind of shitty response that some people or, like, the snarky response some people have,
Hmm, hmm.
um, which is it doesn't actually say what anyone looks like. It just says that the Greek gods are fucking people. So as long as like they look like they could probably have one white parent, like you're good because you know Greek gods will fuck anybody.
I mean, that is in the stories.
Yeah, but the author came out with a statement which was that he made the Percy Jackson series because his son who has ADHD and dyslexia, um, felt like left out and sidelined
Right,
because he had a learning disability. So in
right,
Percy Jackson world, it is textual that all of these half gods have ADHD and dyslexia
right,
because their brain wants them to read ancient Greek. And um their ADHD is actually because they have like heightened combat abilities or whatever.
right,
So
right.
uh so he's like the whole they exist to create representation for the underrepresented. So it is like completely in line slash like thematically correct to add even more diversity and let even more marginalized people see themselves
Good in
um,
these Greek
in
gods.
in these stories. Yeah, like they just need that they're about Greek gods. We don't need like
Yeah. I think it was you who were
um,
telling me about how the writing style is very, it's like, listen, we're writing with ADHD people in mind. So it's like, listen, we're gonna do a little bit of exposition, the bare minimum,
ADHD
and then pass it along.
children
Yes.
specifically, because it's like exposition, fight. Like,
This is a very
um,
fast-paced. We're giving you something you can
well,
concentrate on and read and
I
enjoy.
wouldn't I wouldn't even call it fast paced because like a lot of the fights don't necessarily move the plot ahead.
Right.
Um, they're there so the kid doesn't get bored with the exposition scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Keep the interest levels high.
yeah.
Nice.
To the point where the Percy Jackson musical, what I think is genius move on adaptation part because it could be very hard to adapt an entire book into a musical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they took all the fights in the middle and turned them into a road trip montage song.
Good.
So they're still all there. They're just road trip montage song.
Good.
Yeah. And um it was also very good because it was like in it there's like this the smart girl character who is got a lot of Hermione in her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
To
But
mention
not written by Sophie
the
Chapel.
yeah. Well, so she has a lot of that character in her. And there's a part where the main character is surprised that she's also dyslexic,
Right.
making the point like, yeah, dyslexia does not mean that you are dumb. It
No.
just means
You
you
have
have trouble
difficulty
reading.
reading. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's they're different things there. Yeah, and I thought that was a good
That's a good
like
lesson for kids. I like that, and
Yeah,
with a lot of adults too,
yeah, because the point is that they all have dyslexia.
yeah, because their brains are doing too much. They're trying to read in Greek.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then also what's good on the guy who wrote it's more chops to him is when the publisher was like, Why don't you do this with other mythologies?" Um, like you did the Greek gods, but now do it with other mythologies. And he did Norse
Right.
mythologies, and then they're like, "Okay, yeah, keep going." And he
He's
was
like,
like,
nope,
"No, why don't we hire someone
good,
from that
correct,
to do
properly.
it?" Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's how to do it.
yeah. So, like, with that baseline of everyone is
Of
somehow
course, knows what's
connected
going
or
on.
related to a god,
Yeah.
um, do that. So, I'll probably check that out when it comes out,
Hmm.
um, just to see how it looks.
I read a cute YA a couple weeks ago, I
Not
think.
even YA, it's, like, younger than that, so it's, like, middle grade.
Okay, cool. Uh,
Uh,
it was called Anyeka and Her Magical Hair, I think, and Her Wonderful Hair,
okay,
something like that. And it is a African superhero. She starts off in the UK, um, but her mom, through various plot reasons, is like, "Okay, we have to go home," because there are various reasons why you can't be here anymore. But also, there's a training school there that's very X-Men like, and her magic powers, of course, her hair. Her hair is
mhm,
alive and magical, and she can use it to do all kinds of cool stuff. And it was chosen then because the author was like, "Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with my hair growing up. I didn't like having natural hair. Like everyone made fun of me. It was hard to maintain. There was no good barbers for it in my area, and I just wanted my little girl to grow up with a healthy relationship with her hair, and knowing that it was fine to have natural hair." I was like, "That's really cute. I like people of
good,
our generation fixing their own traumas for their kids."
good, good,
And it's a
good,
cute
good.
story. There was some pretty subversive. The X-Men ain't all that bits in there, which I was found fun too.
Um, so question,
Yeah.
if you had to do a Cree version of, um, the Percy Jackson setup,
Oh yeah.
what would you do?
Thing is, there's not really gods, but there are spirits. And I wouldn't
Um,
want to get too much into the spirits for a variety of cultural reasons. So
mhm.
I would
So
probably call them like the gifted, and they would have
mhm.
aspects of things, but they wouldn't be like directly the children of gods or anything.
Yeah, 'cause so, with that, like, starting point, obviously, that doesn't work for every type of pantheon.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, Tristan Strong, is in this sort of Percy Jackson oeuvre and
Mm.
is all about, African folklore,
Yeah.
but, it's like he has a mystical connection to the stories, um, rather than being, like, the son of Anansi or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of so I had to answer this question before, sort of.
Mhm,
There's a game called The Strange. It's a tabletop role playing game by Monty Cook Games. Um, and you're basically like playing dimension hopping people, and
Mhm.
you stay the same sort of, but like your power set may change because it's you in a different universe. You're still you,
Mhm.
but you're the like aspect of you in that other universe. So if you were in like a cyberpunk universe and suddenly jumped into like a high fantasy, your super speed would be like a magic power instead of cyberware, and that's really
Okay.
fun. But they had a setting in there that was all based around Lakota mythology, and the original version of it didn't have any native consultation. Uh, but they were like they were like, we were trying to, do a good representation here, was the reason they included it. They're like, we want to include like marginalized people. Um,
Mhm.
so when they got some blowback from it, they were like, okay, we should hire some native people to come in and like recontextualize
Fix
it
it.
for us. Yeah. So they got me and Anthony Pastores to come in and do a rewrite on it. And we really had to like have a think for the very first meeting that we all had together. It was like, okay, how can we have non-native players in a native mythology setting, but it's safe and comfortable for everyone because they're not like portraying native people necessarily. And so
Mhm.
the answer we came up with was to have it set in the Storylands. So it's not actually our Earth. It's like an echo of the stories that we tell becomes a real
Mhm.
place. And the characters from the story, not the real, Coyote and Raven and etc., but a story version of them, the story version that we tell, lives there. And sort of placing it outside our reality and our customs kind of took the curse off it a bit. And it was like, yeah, this is a fun place that we can come and play in now because it's not culturally relevant. It's just an echo of
Mhm.
things that exist. So yeah, I'd
All
probably do
right.
a middle grades book in the similar way of like one remove from our Earth.
All right.
And then also the YA novel I'm working on right now, my cyberpunk YA novel, is kind of like an AU version of the native Hercules story. So it's like they're not the original Ayase, but they are un Ayase in their own universe. They are this
Okay.
large figure, but they're also just a kid in this universe.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool question because it's stuff I've actually thought about.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to know. I figured you would have a
Yeah,
good answer.
yeah. Stuff I've had to think about for work.
My brain is ruined because now whenever I see anything Johnny Quest, I think Venture Brothers.
Good.
Um, Someone I know posted a very nice drawing for, like, the something something anniversary of Johnny Quest, and I
Ooh.
just kept thinking of Action Johnny. Um, and also you just saying, "I've thought about this," made
Yep.
me think of, when Hank asks Brock, "Hey, Brock, if you had to kill us, how would you do it?" And he very quickly answers,
Yes.
and Hank is
I
like,
thought about
"You've thought
this.
about this?" He
Yeah.
goes, "Yes, I have." Uh,
Hmm. I was gonna put something in the background of the shot, but I think it's emotionally better if it's just empty.
I love it when that happens. Less
Yeah.
work equals more emotionally resonant.
Emotionally charged. Because they're thinking about like the big distance between them and their sister. So just the distant horizon line and expanse of snow, I think will sell better than trees.
Oh, speaking of, distance between people and, like, too much snow, I have been reading up on the Scott expedition to Antarctica,
Oh,
um,
oh, that
and
sounds
that
fascinating.
is horrible. Would
Yes.
you like to hear about a bunch of, um, people freezing to death, um, 10 miles away from where there was food.
Ooh.
So they
Yes,
were so
please.
close. That's the tragedy of it, is they were
Yep.
so close. Um, basically, um, this is mostly chronicled. Most of like what we know about it is because the youngest member of the crew wrote a memoir to deal with his PTSD from the trip.
Right.
But you know, at the time he wrote it, they didn't know what PTSD was.
Yeah.
Um, so there were 2 points of the mission. Um, purpose number 1 was to be the first people to make it to the South Pole.
Yeah.
Purpose number 2 was to get some eggs from emperor penguins so they could study the embryos.
Right.
And because at the time they thought like the embryos would like have the secrets of evolution inside them.
Yeah.
Like I guess they thought that like all of evolution happens in the embryo.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong, but like they don't have DNA sequencing technology yet, so yes,
Yeah,
it's not too
well,
bad.
like as in like it will be part lizard, part bird before it decides to be just a bird.
I mean, still not wrong. Still very not wrong. They actually develop teeth, I believe, embryonic teeth that they then are reabsorbed.
So
So they were
anyway, so
probably
they were
right.
gonna um but so yeah, so that's what their purpose was. So there were a lot of scientists, but then the guy who wanted to be first in the South Pole, um, maybe made some bad decisions because he was in a hurry.
Maybe.
Um,
I mean, that was also
what
the cause of the Donner Party tragedy, so please
one
tell me more.
one such bad decision was on a previous expedition to the South Pole. This captain, um, the dogs didn't do well.
Yeah,
So, instead of using dog sleds, he was like, "Well, I guess we'll take them as backup, but we're gonna rely on this new technology,
yeah.
um, and horses."
Ooh, horses don't do good in the cold.
Well, he was like, the idea was that they were gonna get that Mongolian horse breed,
Still
that
nothing as good as
does
dogs.
it's not as good as dogs, but it's at least not like a racehorse,
Yeah,
like, as far as poor decisions go.
they will last longer than a racehorse.
Um, but the guy who knew how to make sure the horses were good horses, couldn't make it in time. Um,
Oh boy,
so he
did he
was
buy some
like,
horses
"I'll
from
have this other guy buy horses."
Oh no.
And
Oh
this other
no.
guy doesn't know anything about horses. Because what could he possibly get wrong about horses? A horse is a horse.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Uh, and so the plan is that they're gonna make little like meeting stations every so and so such and such miles.
Yeah.
Um, but the newfangled snow tractors like immediately break down and then they can't get all their supplies as far as they want. So the um last supply station before the trek to the South Pole um is ends up being 50 miles further north than they originally planned.
Right.
Because, you know, they can't get their stuff there.
Yeah.
and then this guy doesn't like trust the dogs to get stuff there. Um, and then one of the dog sleds that was going to get more supplies fell in a crevasse.
That happens.
Um, so there goes a bunch of supplies.
Oops.
And then it's like, okay, so we're gonna go to try to get to the South Pole anyway. And they get there and someone else beat them to it.
Good.
Um and then um they were so determined to get there, rather than turn back when it was maybe sensible, that so when I said one dog sled fell into a crevasse,
Oh yeah.
they did get the guy and some of the dogs out. But that guy maybe had a head injury
Right.
and like couldn't focus, and like they're in the middle of the freezing Arctic. And now they're more babysitting him than like having a person who can help. So on their trek back, they're not making good time, and um it's partly because of the weather, partly because they don't have as many dogs as they thought they'd have, and because this guy keeps like not doing the stuff that he's ordered to do, and like losing focus.
Oh. Because
And
he's
he
got like a brain
apparently,
injury.
yeah, he's got something going on. And he apparently like wandered out into the cold to die.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
Oh no, no, no. That's a different guy.
Oh, okay.
So the guy with the head injury, he just dies. Like they try to help him as long as they can, but he just dies. So
Yeah.
instead of being able to do 10 miles a day or more, they're only doing like 5 miles a day.
Oof. And they already don't have enough food
Uh,
to get there and back.
and then um one guy has like ridiculous frostbite, so he can't walk for very long.
Yep.
On top of the guy who can't focus. The guy who can't focus dies, and they're like, okay, we can pick up the pace, but then they have the guy who can't walk for very long because of the horrible frostbite on his foot. Um,
Fun fact:
and
there
then
is
he
a
starts
horrible frostbite in the later half of this book.
to have like a fever,
Yep.
because turns out his frostbite is gangrenous.
Yep. That'll do.
Um,
That'll happen.
and then so they can't get that far every day because his frostbite is gangrenous. And then he they're not going to make it to the checkpoint in time. um they're worried that no one's going to come to get them because like it's past checkpoint day and there hasn't been a
Yeah.
search party.
Yeah.
um and the guy with gangrenous, he's the one who wandered out into the snow to die.
Oh, right.
Um, and he did
It
it.
was some sort of
They
noble
think that
thing.
he
Yeah.
they think he did it because he was like, I'm slowing down the team and they're all gonna die because of me not being able to go as fast as them.
Right.
Um, so he did it, thinking he could save his friends, but it was already too late. They were too far behind schedule.
Yeah.
And then a horrible blizzard happens, and then they cannot move, period, for
Oof.
like 2 weeks.
Yep.
And when the search party finally finds them, they were 10 miles away.
Yup. But you can't move in a
Um,
blizzard. You will get lost.
and so
That is
the
in fact
thing
what happens in
yeah,
the story that I'm drawing currently. There is a blizzard that blows up on this family when they're trying to go home, and this girl gets separated from her brothers and is lost for 2 weeks in the wilderness on her own. It's a
yeah,
true story. It happens frequently up in the north. It used to. And
um,
I had a
but,
big chat with the editors about like, K. So the last chapter is about dealing with her horrible frostbite, but this is a middle grades book. How
how
accurate?
graphic we getting?
How graphic are we getting here? And they're like, not, not, not much. I'm like, that's fine. I can do that. We'll shade her in a little bit differently. That's it.
So yeah, and from the guy who, survives memoir, like, they know all that stuff about the guy losing focus and, the other guy wandering into the
Yeah.
no
Maybe
to
since he's
die.
gonna,
They find that
gonna,
because those are, like, journals that were left behind from the guys that froze to death,
right.
because they all died,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the guy whose memoir covered most of the journey, um, he, um he was the one who was sent to, like, retrieve them,
Mm,
um, when he first, he was like when they're like, "Oh, maybe the dogs will come looking for us," he was the one who would have been doing that,
right.
um, and he ended up deciding to go back rather than venture past the first checkpoint,
Yeah.
um,
Smart.
like, he waited a week at the checkpoint, and when they didn't come, he went back.
Yeah.
Um, and so his memoir is all full of regret because if they're 10 miles away, he's like, "Oh, I could have gotten them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe,
Maybe. Or you could have gotten
and
lost
saved them."
and died as well.
Well, here's the other thing is, why is he alone in the middle of the Antarctic?
Mm-hmm.
In his memoir, we find out things going wrong on a different side of things, which
Oh.
is, um, the guy who was in charge of the dogs got news that his dad died.
Oh.
So rather than prepping for the dogs, he, like, wouldn't go and then just left on the first boat that was coming.
Right.
Um, because, like, he's like, "I don't give a shit about this expedition anymore. My dad's
Yeah.
dead."
I gotta go
Um
do family stuff.
and so it was like at first he thought he saw a boat, but then it turned out it was a mirage. And then he was like, "Well, I'm gonna stay here and wait for a boat rather than using dogs to rescue people." So that was delay number one.
Right.
Delay number two was the guy who was in charge wasn't very after like because all the high up commanders were on the expedition to the South Pole.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who was left in charge um, was not a good commander, um, and maybe wanted to plan his own mission after this one. Um, so when he did finally get someone else to go, the orders he gave to this youngest person, first of all, one of the other, because they were trying to get Emperor Penguin eggs,
Right.
um, the next most senior officer who should have gone on the rescue mission, um, and also maybe should have gone because he is a medical doctor,
Oh
and
yeah, that's
if they
important.
need rescue, they might need a doctor.
Yeah.
Um, he was like, "I should go because I'm a doctor," and the commanding officer was like, "No, we need you here to do science stuff, so we'll just send the kid alone."
Oh, good. Good.
And when I say kid,
I mean,
this
like
guy was
kid.
23.
Right. That's yeah.
Um, so he then orders the kid um to not do anything that would risk the lives of the dogs
Right.
because he wants to use them for the next expedition.
Right.
Um, and because he was told not to risk the dogs, that is why
He didn't
when
go
he
over
got
again.
to the checkpoint, he
Yeah.
stayed. Yeah. Um, so there's all these different things that had to go wrong that like they could have been saved if like maybe even one thing went different.
But that's not how it goes sometimes.
No, no,
Oof.
yeah. Um, and then the cherry on top is the kid gets the penguin eggs to the scientific research place that
Right.
uh asked for them, and they're like, oh yeah, it turns out that theory's bunk, so we don't actually care about your penguin eggs.
But I carried them here all the way from the Antarctic. That's nice. Thank
Yeah,
you.
people died to get these eggs and you don't care.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Yep. uh so the memoir is called The Worst Journey in the World.
Good. I was reading up on the Donner Party at one point because I was like, what the fuck happened there? Like, what was up with that? And there was a similar, not even series of errors. It was like pig-headedness that really doomed them all.
Mhm.
So it was this
uh
guy, or have you?
Well, I do know one thing, from talking to Mel Gilman about it, because Mel Gilman dived into it a
Good.
bit,
It's fascinating.
and they were telling me, one as pig-headed as the Donner Party it was, one thing in their defense is they thought it was going to be a lot warmer,
Yes. They also got
because
swindled by a guy who was like, yeah, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I can get you there.
uh,
Yeah.
because uh someone made a map that was like what month is the coldest on average, like
Yes.
throughout the United States.
Yeah.
Um, and it gets colder on the West Coast a lot later than it does on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So, they, as people from the East Coast, thought November, December was going to be the coldest months, and
Right.
then are here on the West Coast and are like, why is it still this cold in
Yeah,
January,
forever.
February?
It's cold a long time. So they got into town and there was this like guy who was like, I'm a guide for hire, and nobody hired him because he was like sort of renowned as a he'll cheat you and just take you across anyway, and it'll be real substandard. And so they were like, okay, sure, we're late and he's the only option, I guess.
Mhm,
We're already running behind. We don't want to be, waiting for another guy who's better to get back. So we'll go with this guy. And he was like, great, I can get you ready to go in like a week. And he went and he like got all the shoddiest equipment and the cheapest supplies that he could get, because he had to get it fast. So it was just whatever was in town, which wasn't the good stuff. And then they rode off too late. No one else would make the crossing. And he was like, I'll do it. And everyone was like, you will die. And he's like, maybe. Anyway, I'll take these guys gold in the meantime. Bye. So yeah, series of misadventures of like axle breaking because it was a shitty axle and this and that. Long story short, they eventually got far enough into the mountains that the winter had hit in earnest, and they're like, I guess we need to build a shelter. So they built this like little mud hut kind of thing with whatever they could scrape together. And there was several points where some of the local native people came by and were like, y'all okay over there? and the Donner Party was too scared because they'd heard all these stories about like, oh no, Indians will raid us and steal our gold and take our children and stuff. And they were always like, no, stay away, get away from us. And they're like, we just want to help and bring you food because y'all look like you're having some troubles. Do you want
You're
us
having
to
some
kill you?
troubles.
And they're like, no, get away, we'll shoot at you. And they're like, fine, okay, cool, bye, see you later. And then there was another point where there was a couple of trappers who were through the area, and they were like native trappers, and they were like, "We should go check in on those guys and just see if anyone's still alive." Yeah, we probably should. So they went by, and they got there, and like they were traumatized because they were like, "Man, they had like a guy's leg jointed and hanging from the roof like a pig's, and like it was everyone was filthy and gaunt, and like it was real bad times in there. We took the hell off. We did not need that.
Oh,
Had to
yeah,
deal with that.
it's bad.
Yep.
I sent you secret things
Ooh, cool.
about people dying in Antarctica.
Oh, good. Ooh, exciting. That's very cool.
Actually, I don't know why. Actually, I don't know why I'm being coy. She announced it on her Patreon. So,
Oh, oh, then we're good.
Iron Circus licensed this comic adaptation of that guy's memoir, The Worst Journey in the World.
The
And
cover's
so,
super pretty. It's really pretty.
uh, yeah, so we'll be publishing it. The artist is Sarah Aris. She used to work for Disney.
That's why it's so pretty.
And then this Antarctica journey became her hyperfixation.
Nice.
Um,
Was this the pandemic hyperfixation? Because that happens.
no, she started but way before the
Oh,
pandemic.
cool.
Because so I've been following her art for years. Because she did a bunch of Discworld fan art that I really like.
Yes, you sent me some of that. It's
Um,
really cool.
yes, so yeah, she's been working on this for forever. In fact, she's like halfway through volume 2.
Dang.
'Cause uh and so uh yeah, she's doing an adaptation for the whole thing. She she really, really wants to tug on your heartstrings because the mentor figure of the guy whose memoir it is one of the dudes that froze to death
Mm,
on the way to the South Pole.
gotcha.
And so she really playing up those heartstrings because when they're like leaving, there's a lot of like him kissing his wife goodbye and like
Right.
just so you know, this guy's married. And also,
He's definitely dying in this book.
and it's also like he's the nice mentor to the plucky
Yeah.
kid that got onto the mission. Um,
Oh boy.
he bought he bought his way into the mission. Because he can't see, so he is a terrible person to send for the rescue party.
Fair.
Um, um, and he they're like, yeah, you should not go to the Antarctic.
Yeah.
And he's like, what if I give you money? Someone adjusted it for inflation, it would be like $100,000. He was like, here is $100,000 to donate to your mission, if you let me come. And they're
Since
like, you
no
still
man
can't
was
come.
on subs
You
energy.
still, yeah, you still can't come because you can't see. And he's like, well, I really believe in this mission, so here's the money anyway. And because he gave them the money anyway, they were like, okay, actually, you can come.
I guess.
They were like, well, that shows that you're like a good person because you gave us the money without strings attached.
Right.
So you
So
can come.
you can risk your life out in the cold. It's fine.
Biggest mistake of that guy's life.
Yep.
Because he had all the trauma afterwards.
Yep.
He got to find his mentor's body frozen, um, in the Arctic.
And then blame himself for the rest of the life.
Yes.
Good survivor's guilt going on. That's good. That's yeah. That's a story.
So yeah, so there's a lot of in this first volume, like here's the guy kissing his wife goodbye, here's
Yeah.
him showing the main character how to draw, like
Oh,
here they are like discussing birds. Aren't they nice and charming and like um
birds are cool.
um there's a funny part where because it's Christmas, they're like, well, obviously there's no geese in Antarctica. What do you think penguins taste like? And they have to capture a penguin to be their Christmas dinner.
Nice. I imagine penguin tastes a little fishy, given that that's what they eat.
Yeah. They say what they think penguin tastes like
Oh yeah.
in the comic.
Hmm.
Because it's the guy's memoir, so obviously he ate penguin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm scrolling to get to the point.
I'm always interested in descriptions of game that you can no longer eat or that is you're not practical for you to eat. There's a bunch of accounts of it took them forever to come up with well, not to come up with a scientific name, but to formalize the scientific name for the Galapagos tortoises.
Hmm.
Not because they couldn't transport them back; they're very easy to transport and feed on the journey, but that they're so delicious that they never lasted the journey back. Just spectacularly delicious, and the ship's crew, after they'd eaten through all of the animals that they'd brought with them, would be like, mm, well, it
What
was a
if
long
we
trip. What if we just had one? Well, we're becalmed. What if we had another one? And just none of them made it back.
they're just too tasty.
They're just too delicious.
Um,
There was also another wildlife writer who did this really interesting essay on a guy that hunts cougars and eats them because he's like, I don't want anything go to waste, but I will, for various reasons, I hunt these cougars, and I have invited you to come out and experience it with me. And the very last thing is them cooking it up and him going to take a bite, and then the essay ends, and I'm like, yeah, but what did it taste like though?
okay, so I got to the part where they eat the penguins.
Mm,
Um, I say the penguin is rather nice. One person says a bit fishy for my taste. Um, and then
well, then you're
someone
starving. You
says
don't have to.
I'd prefer jugged hair. Um, and then um, someone at says that they like it better than the mutton that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so fishy is accurate.
Yeah, I figured.
Some good doggo drawings in this book.
Oh, good. Seal is delicious. I would eat seal any day of the week. Um, Whale also very very tasty.
Doo, doo, doo. I like tasting different meats. People say meat doesn't really have a flavor, or at least, and I've heard some people say that that all the flavoring on meat is like stuff that we add to it later.
Oh
And
no,
I don't think that's true.
that's very not true.
Um,
Because like stuff that eats fish tastes fishy. It tastes of what it
yeah.
eats.
I just sent you the goofy penguin scene.
Good. Uh, Crocodile's very nice, but also tastes very fishy because that's a lot of what they eat.
I
Or the
realize like
predator.
through tasting different meats that I don't particularly like birds because of the texture of their
Mm,
meat. So yeah, usually like because it's whenever I try a new bird,
right.
I'm usually not into it. Except I did like duck. Duck is the exception to the rule.
Duck's just delicious. I
Well,
think we
like I
spent time
said,
together,
my
right? Didn't we go to that Chinese place that does Peking duck here in town?
no, we did not do that.
Oh, who did I take for Peking duck?
Um, I uh, well, so my objection is usually not the flavor; it is always the texture. Like I've had
Mm,
ostrich and emu, chicken and turkey, and
ostrich is very
um,
weird texture. It's really more rubbery than you'd expect.
yeah. Um, just like ungulates too much; they're too delicious. I saw a beautiful post about how horses are broken and horrible.
But
And
also
it's because they
delicious.
don't have it's because they don't have enough toes.
Yes.
Um, and it was someone said horses are only interested in two things, homicide and suicide. And
They're
it's
not wrong.
basically everything that makes a horse fast is also a detriment, like
Yes.
health wise.
Yep.
Because since it doesn't have enough toes, it means that it's got too much pressure on its ankles and joints.
Yep.
Um, and then because it needs to run so fast, um, it has high blood pressure
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and it's just not good to be a horse.
Nope. But not all of them have to survive. Just enough of them to make more horses. And that's a real herbivore thing too, where it's like, listen, we don't have to have long lives, but we do, you know, if you are too old to outrun the predator, then you get eaten. But the rest of us will get away, and that's fine.
Yeah. I also saw a rather beautiful thing about humans
Mm.
in regards to evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a comic that's been going around that's like every creature does what it needs to do to survive as soon as it's born.
Yeah.
Baby giraffes can walk and run immediately because it needs to do those to survive.
Yeah.
And what is the first thing a human baby does is cry
Yeah.
because the things that humans need to do most to survive is ask for help.
That's true. And get
So
help from other
don't,
humans.
yeah, so don't be, and it ends us like, so don't be ashamed to ask for help. It's like
That is the
literally
human thing.
what we are built to do. Like, that is what we are made to do. Ask for help.
That's nice. I like that.
It is very sweet.
There is a bunch of different native legends, but the one that I'm most familiar with is basically the concept that in the family of all of the animals that exist, we are the youngest sibling because all of the other ones can do all the stuff that they need to basically from birth. But we take
Hmm.
frickin' ages to grow up and figure out what we're doing. And they were like, and so that's why you have to respect the other animals because they are your elder
Because
sibling.
they're the grown-ups.
Exactly. But also, like, they teach us things like, you know which berries are safe to eat because you can watch squirrel, or you know which plants are good medicines because certain animals eat them when they're sick.
That's not
So
always true. There's
yeah,
some things that other animals eat that will
that
fuck
will
us
kill
up,
us. Yeah,
but
for sure.
I understand the sentiment. It is a nice sentiment. It
Yeah.
is just not always applicable.
Generally, though, something that'll kill a rodent will kill a human. So, or if it harms a rodent, you shouldn't eat it. It'll make you sick.
Mhm.
So, if a squirrel can eat it, you're probably safe. Definitely not birds, though. Birds can eat stuff that we can't, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Don't trust what birds are eating.
Burr, burr, burr.
You want to hear a couple really lame jokes?
Yes.
All right.
Always.
This is from the book I'm working on. I didn't write these. These are like old family jokes, and I'm really curious to see if modern kids will find any of them funny or even get them. I had to read them a couple times before I was like, oh, I guess. Uh, how do you catch a unique rabbit? Unique
How?
up on it.
Oh, that's good. I love it. No, that's great.
Good, good. And then, how do you catch a tame rabbit? The tame
Um,
way.
good, good,
Yeah,
good.
they devoted an entire page to those jokes.
I'm glad that's the correct answer.
Yeah. And I mean, it's emotionally resonant. These are the jokes her family told her, and she's remembering them, and it's like, good. I'm going to put a smile on my face, and I believe I can get home.
What are dumb jokes that got told a lot in your family?
Oh, it was all like dumb phrases. We were very good at coming up with silly, weird phrases. Let me try to remember some of them. But what were yours?
My cousin always said that their favorite joke was two muffins get put in an oven, and one goes, "Phew, it's hot in here," and the other says, "Ah, a talking muffin."
Good. That's a solid one. I
That
like
was
that.
that was always my cousin's favorite joke.
Good.
Um, and Then there's one where I am always slightly hesitant to share it. Like, even though it's punching up, it's a little like, I don't know about this. My uncle's favorite joke was, how many wasps does it take to screw out a light bulb?
Mm,
Um, two, one to make martinis and the other to call someone else to do it.
right, right. I figured that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm trying to think of dumb jokes and sayings. We had a lot of jokes about spam, and they weren't good jokes. Like the food, not the emails, because emails didn't weren't around.
They weren't around then.
emails didn't exist. Uh, and I don't remember who started it, but like the punchline was always like, well, you could be eating a can of spam. Like if you're like, oh, I don't know, this sandwich is dry. And my mom would be like, well, I could open an entire can of spam. You could just eat that. I don't know why it was the punchline food. I guess because it was like cheap and readily available and over salty, and my mom didn't like it. So it kind of
Mhm.
like became the butt of every food joke.
Um, Trying to think of other ones. My uncle, because I wore black as a kid a lot, my uncle would call me Johnny Cash.
Oh, good. That's a good one.
I did not appreciate it at the time.
Now I'd be flattered. I would be like, fuck yeah, Johnny Cash is rad.
Um, it's like I don't know your old people music.
Oh,
Yeah.
my cousin's name is Coleman, and everyone in the family would sing "I'm a Soul Man" to him, but it's I am Coal Man.
Good,
I'm
good,
sure he
good.
hates that, but we did it way too
Yeah,
much. Sorry, Cole.
it's probably like, no, no, fuck you.
Yeah, I hate that song. It's a great song, but I hate it on principle.
Uh,
That's it for my pages for today, I think. Let me see what else I got here. So I do some word balloons. My brother used to think he knew the lyrics to songs,
mhm.
but he was 6, so he did not know the lyrics to songs. And for like half a year, he sang the song Akuna Matata. There's a line in there. God, I can't even remember the original line now, but Jordan was convinced that it was "And I Eat My Skin." And we were like, no, Jordan, this is a Disney movie. Pumbaa
They do
definitely
not
does
do
not
that
eat
in Disney.
anyone's
Yeah,
skin. Pumbaa is not a cannibal. And he's like, no, that's what it says. That's what the song says. And we're like, okay, you do you, I guess, but that's definitely not the lyrics. There was also a
don't
line
judge him.
Mulan,
Don't ruin his bliss.
right?
Um,
So we still sing it that way
oh,
occasionally.
that that reminds me. There was a Tumblr going around that was, "Am I the asshole for naming my twins after um fictional characters that are now a couple?"
Oh,
And their explanation was they were not like they were from an obscure book that someone would not get unless they had also read the book, and um, they were not a couple, they were just good friends in the book.
hmm.
And now it has been adapted into a show, and they are kissing on screen and are a couple. And um, like, am I the asshole for naming my twins that? Um,
What characters are
and
they?
someone replied with, um, "You're not the asshole unless their names are Crowley and Azrael. In which case, why did you name a living human being Azrael?"
Yeah,
Like, not that they're a couple, but why did you name a child that?
Azrael. Yeah. What was it?
And that is what they were
No.
named.
Do not
Um,
no name your child Aziraphale.
and I was like, um, talking to someone
Do
that I was
not.
like, a living human being should not be named Aziraphale unless they are trans and they picked that name for
Yes,
themselves, in which
correct.
case follow your bliss.
Yes, that is the
Um,
exception. You can
but
definitely do that.
but otherwise, um, no, don't inflict that name on a child.
Do not name your child
And
Aziraphale?
yeah, and then someone was like, I don't know, even if they are a trans person following their bliss, they're still pretty lame. Like that's still a pretty lame name. And I was like, but if you're naming yourself that, you are advertising to the world
There
that
you
you are a
go.
specific type of
There you go.
lameness that
Exactly.
you do want people to acknowledge and understand about you.
Yes. And I
And they were
that's
like,
no,
yeah,
do
I
that. Do
guess.
that. Totally do that. If it's your choice.
Um,
Amazing.
yes, if it's
But
your choice,
do not name someone else
but
that.
don't inflict that name onto someone else.
Then
Um,
okay, so I had friends growing up who were named after like Tolkien characters. There was like
yeah.
Eowyn and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then so the next sort of generation version of that is a bunch of somebody I went to school with named her children after Dragon Age characters. So it's like
Mhm.
Alistair and oh shit, I can't remember the other one's name. But at least Alistair is like
Morgan,
a
yeah,
normal-ish name.
Alistair and Morgan, like those are names that could be
Oh, Cullen.
like
It was Alistair
from
and Cullen, which those are
okay.
fine names. Those
Those
are classic
yeah,
names.
those are names that like someone might recognize, but someone also might
It's
be
just like that's
like,
just a name. That's just a
yeah,
classic.
like if you're a Star Wars fan who names your kid Luke,
Yeah,
um, that's fine.
yeah, because Luke's
One
just
of
a name.
my other favorite am I the assholes things is someone being like, okay, both me and my husband are big fans of Game of Thrones.
Yep.
And we want to name our child
Oh boy.
a thing from
Oh
Game
boy.
of Thrones. But I am thinking about our child as a living human being,
Hmm.
um, who may or may not enjoy this series.
There's going to
And
be a
because of
million
that,
Khaleesi's.
and so so they're like, so I would like to name them after a character that gives them some plausible deniability,
Right.
like John or
Yeah.
Jamie or Rob.
That's all
Even
fine.
Even Eddard is
It
at
could be Ed.
least like
It could just be Ed.
they can go, but they could be Ed or they could be Ned. Like
Yeah.
they got some wiggle room there. And he's like, but no, my husband wants to name our child Baratheon.
Oh no. The Cuck House.
Hey, not everyone in there is a cuck.
No, it's true.
Um,
But
they're
their symbol is
a a cuck, a Volcel, and a gay man.
yes, good. I remember you explaining the symbolism of that to me last stream. That was great.
Yeah. Um, Also, they keep headbutting each other. That's the real symbolism. That they're too busy fighting each other
Yes.
to realize that there's predators.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I just love that. Like, but no, he wants to name our kid Baratheon.
Baratheon. You just go
Um,
by Brad. You just go by Brad. Hi, I'm Brad.
but there's no like she's arguing for plausible deniability. Like
Yeah,
if you name a kid John, like you don't have to tell anyone that you're named after Jon Snow.
exactly.
Um if
Now, you can have just the most common name, so that's also its own
but
problem.
or Jamie, like
Yeah,
again, you don't have to tell anyone that you're
that's
named
fine.
after
Jamie is gender
Jamie.
neutral. That's great.
Yeah. Even Arya, you have a little bit of
Yeah.
plausible deniability. Like, but picking the last names and turning them into first names, like, no, there's nothing.
No.
There's no hope. Um, might as well name the kid Daenerys.
Just go full out. I'm sure there was a bajillion Daenerys's, a lot of Khaleesi's.
Yeah, there were a lot of Khaleesi's. I remember, like, there were enough that it, like, made a news report that, like,
Yeah.
the popularity of the name Khaleesi was on the rise.
Yeah, it's gonna be really weird because, like, no, that left no, well, not no, but it left very little cultural mark for how big it was at the time.
Um, what I think is really funny is I told you this, the 2 little girls at San Diego last year, and I was like, "All right, given that one is 4 and one is 6, and their parents are big enough nerds to take them to Comic-Con,
Hmm.
what do you think their names are?" And I was having people guess what these 2 girls are named.
Good.
They're named Daenerys and Arya.
Okay, good. Yep.
Daenerys, you can at least go by Danny
Yep. Danny.
if you
Arya
want.
is at least, maybe just a neat sounding name.
Yeah.
Uh, I was almost named after Ariel, not from The Little Mermaid, but from The Tempest, because that is my mom's nerdery. But she went with Alina instead, just because random neat name from a baby book that turns out to be very popular in uh, Romania.
Huh.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Alinas out there. I've just never met more than three of them.
That reminds me, I need to watch more of the Shadow and Bone show.
Yes.
I turned my Netflix
Amazing
back
little
on.
guy.
So now I can watch it again.
Cool. I'm still on Crunchyroll mode.
Yeah. Um
Gotta have my mayonnaise.
did you say you were almost done with your page?
Yeah.
I finished the video game art I was working on. So
Oh, cool.
I'll hang out and chat until you're done.
I am
But
basically
I'm
done. I
gonna
started working on another piece now, just
oh
for fun. But
um
I'm good to call it whenever because I know we both have early mornings for various reasons.
yes. Going to do Pilates. My hip muscles are going to yell at me like they did last time,
Good.
because they're not used to moving horizontally.
Yep. You're like, what the hell is
Um,
this?
they're like, "What are you doing? This is not sitting in your chair for hours on end.
Yep.
How
That's why
dare?
Pilates is necessary.
How dare?"
Sitting, not connecting the
Um,
body.
I'm still doing my quest to reach One Punch Mandom.
Good.
I can do 60 squats in a row.
Holy crap. Nice.
Um, I can do 20 sit-ups and 6 push-ups.
Nice. So 100 push-ups is killer. How one punch
Yeah.
man? How?
Yeah. That's why he can defeat anyone in one punch.
Yeah.
I had someone
I need to take
reply
that.
to my One Punch Man quest with, "All your hair will fall out," and I was like, "No, because I will refuse to turn off my air conditioner."
Yes.
Because that's the other key thing is he did those, he ate a banana every day, and he didn't turn on his air conditioner.
Yes.
Um, and I was like, no to those last two. I
Yeah.
refuse to eat a banana every day. Um, and
But also
you'll
air
take
conditioner.
my yeah, you will take my air conditioner from my cold dead hands. Though I guess if you're taking my air conditioner, it's probably not that cold because my air conditioner is off.
I mean, it's cold now.
Um,
It's good. I like the rainy fall weather that we are getting. It's much better.
I prefer to be hot than cold.
Hmm.
But
I am from Saskatchewan, so I prefer to be cold, not hot, because that is my
I
home
moved
state.
here. I moved here to escape the snow.
Hmm.
Um, and then it snowed every year I've lived here.
No.
At least it's not like 3 feet of snow at once.
Yeah. I go back home, Saskatchewan, and then it is -40, and I'm like, yeah, this is why I left. I'm going back to
Yeah, no,
the coast.
nope, fuck that. Yeah, the -40, fuck that.
It's so cold it
Uh,
hurts to literally exist. Just
yeah.
existing outdoors is pain.
Oh no. Hi, the one person out of the Seattle crew who didn't go to SPX was the one to get COVID,
No.
and they didn't even go to the con.
No. Oh, that sucks.
Alright, I'm gonna end my stream.
Yeah, sounds good.
Um,
Thanks for hanging out with us
mm,
all tonight,
yeah,
y'all.
thanks, people. You all have good ones. Alina, next week we good?
I think so. I'm should be fine.
Alright,
Alrighty.
cool,
We'll
cool.
see y'all next week.
Stream times next week. Later. Bye.
Bye.